YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with an updated 2-round NFL mock draft post Senior Bowl. We actually have a recent Senior Bowl video up on the channel covering the winners and where they may go in the draft. Check it out. We have full draft coverage, but off-season coverage in general as well. Free agency trades, we got you guys covered, covering the Super Bowl as well. So like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, live news, rumors, and updates on there. Always talking with you guys. Twitter subs. Get some nice bonus content, including the 3rd round mock of this mock draft. So check it out. Sponsor links pinned in the comments along with that Twitter. GLD Shop, always rocking their jewelry. Liquid IV, Walk the Mock. We got codes, and there's links pinned in the comments, like I said. We have a trade in this one, and I've had this trade before, tweaked it a little bit, but I think it's just a very realistic one. I do think the Texans could trade up one spot. Since, they're rivals, the Colts and the Texans, they could be battling for that Chicago Bears first overall pick. It is pretty tricky to figure out the exact compensation or value here because you're not moving much. You're only going from 4 to 1, and the Bears are only going from 1 to 4. They can still get their guy at 4. So this does seem like a lot in terms of compensation for just a small amount of movement, but it's valuable, especially, teams are fighting for the first overall pick with the first overall quarterback / player. And not only that, but they're battling division rivals, in this case, maybe Colts and Texans. So I had the Bears coming away with a second round pick, which will factor into this mock. And then next year, a couple picks high picks from next year. This could be tricky because could the Colts value that next year first a little bit too much, a little too high, I should say, to give it up there. But going on to the mock, so I have the Colts picking first. Most people going with Bryce Young at the top still. I still think CJ Stroud likely the first quarterback taken. Bryce Young extremely talented, but there will be a handful of teams, a lot of teams that may be a little worried about his frame, his size, durability that comes with that. What quarterbacks are thriving in today's NFL, all the ones with the prototypical size, and which ones are a little underwhelming for the most part. The guys that have durability issues, maybe undersized, things like that. But Bryce Young is very talented. But I think the Colts, Chris Ballard, then they'd be interested in more of your prototypical size quarterback there. And he has the talent to go along with it. CJ Stroud's been excellent. That Georgia game was just ridiculous. So Colts go up, pass up the Texans, get their quarterback. The Texans, I actually thought about not going quarterback here. There is a scenario, which most likely I think they go quarterback, but there is a scenario where they don't go quarterback. Maybe they try to find a guy free agency / trade. Or maybe they take a guy later in this draft to have him compete, and they take a guy that really could fit D'Amico Ryan's defense. Maybe more likely a Jalin Carter, but either one. Jalin Carter or Will Anderson that could really thrive in a D'Amico Ryan's defense. So it's a possibility. But they go Bryce Young to get the quarterback of the future here. To get them kind of going, get this thing going here with the new coach and everything. And the Cardinals at 3, kind of back and forth between Jalin Carter, Will Anderson. Jalin Carter, Will Anderson. We're still waiting here, which it should be this week, but who their actual coach would be that could give us an idea, and who if maybe their head coach would be a defensive guy, maybe it's not. Then we need to know who their defensive coordinator is. So that kind of could give us an idea who they're looking at, who they think is more valuable, who they think could fit a little bit more. But they need interior D-line just as much as edge. I've been mocking Will Anderson. It's a very, very realistic pick, but they need that interior guy just as much. And I was thinking, maybe they value kind of some of the young guys they have at the edge position. They drafted a few last year, including a guy like Myjai Sanders. So it's a possibility that they think they're okay for the future at edge. I feel like they're going to think they need an edge guy, but big need in the interior defensive line. Adding Jalin Carter, and the Bears go back to 4. And I think Jalin Carter, Will Anderson, different type of players, obviously, but equally very solid defensive players, top-tier prospects, equally solid picks. But I do think there's a scenario where the Bears value Jalin Carter much more than Will Anderson. Looking at Eberflus's past defenses, I think he'll value the interior a bit more than off the edge. And then there's some teams that may view Will Anderson maybe just strictly as a 3-4 guy, which the Bears did switch to a 4-3. But me, and I think a lot of teams out there may just view him at just, scheme versatile and fits anybody because how good of a player he is. But the Bears, end up with Will Anderson, which helps their pass rush. Remember, they moved down from Mack and Quinn during one during the offseason, one during last year. So they get their pass rush. Another pass rusher comes off the board. Seahawks go with Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher from Texas Tech, who's been extremely productive recently. A very long pass rusher, equally effective standing up, hand the dirt. I like how he diagnoses and makes the play and run in the run game. That stands out to me. The Seahawks need edge. They also need some help stopping the run. So kind of a 2-for-1 special there. Lions go Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback from Oregon. A lot of people mocking Witherspoon maybe up here, which is definitely possible. There's a lot to like about Devon Witherspoon, the Illinois corner. I mean, guys all over the football field and very impressive. Wants to tackle, can tackle. He can, whiff sometimes. But I'm still thinking Gonzalez is a shot as the first corner taken. But looking at specific scheme fit here, Lions were trying to run a lot of man coverage last year, specifically 2-man under. They want to be able to press more and more. If you're running, anything, man related, some teams that run cover 2, they want to run press as much as they can, but not every corner, even in the NFL, can press. I think Witherspoon maybe a little more. He is physical, but he is a little more impressive off coverage. Gonzalez, with his length and his footwork, his hips, his movement in general, very impressive in press man. So I think the Lions will like him a bit, and I think they'll view him as a fit. Maybe we don't know. Maybe they want to add more, off coverage, zone coverage. Whether maybe switch it up from last year is what I'm trying to say is a possibility. I'd still look out for Gonzalez being the first corner. I'm not going to guarantee anything. I think Gonzalez has a shot. I think Witherspoon has a shot. I'd say Keely Ringo has a shot, even though people are I noticed kind of moving him down their ranks a little bit. I still think he's a legit shot at cornerback 1. But the Lions get better at the outside cornerback position there. Raiders go Broderick Jones, tackle from Georgia. Interesting to see how the order of the tackles, how they come off the board. It's a pretty good offensive line clash. You look at Broderick Jones, you look at Peter Skoronski, Paris Johnson Jr. from Ohio State. Get the other Ohio State offensive tackle in DeJuan Jones. Darnell Wright, looked pretty good at the Senior Bowl and had a really good year with the Tennessee Volunteers. And there's more than just that, but those are the guys we're mainly looking at. It's tough to figure out the order specifically, mainly looking at the top 3 that I listed, including Broderick Jones. But I think the physicality that he brings, I think McDaniels and the Raiders will like that a little bit more. This could be a quarterback if they strike out on quarterbacks. Trade market, free agency, probably the trade market, but we'll see. I guess they struck out on Tom Brady because we believe that they were going to be in on him. He retired. So, but I don't think they want to project a quarterback. I think they want to go get an offensive lineman that can help that quarterback. And the Falcons get a pass rusher, Myles Murphy. They bring in Ryan Nielsen, coming from the Saints. I think Murphy will fit that defense, what he's trying to run over there, a physical defensive end, but he can stand up if you need him to. Really good stop and run. I love the get off, the explosiveness. I mean, the guy, big body, physical guy, and he's pretty athletic. I think he's going to be way more productive in the NFL than he was in college. So I like the fit there with the Falcons at pick 8. And remember, we're going over 2 rounds here, and the third round will be up for our Twitter subs, along with more content, so still working on that. But next group of picks, Will Levis goes to the Panthers. I had this last time. The Panthers definitely could be in the market for a quarterback before the draft. Maybe they land a Derek Carr, possibility. Maybe they sign a Jimmy Garoppolo, possibility. But they also can draft one. Frank Reich being able to choose his guy of the future is a possibility. So they go Will Levis. Some people have Will Levis going earlier, maybe the top pick in the draft perhaps. I still think more likely Stroud and Young go before him. Levis a little bit of a project, but prototypical size, physical dude, has the arm strength, has that kind of wow ability, but some things he has to work on there. Keion White was a big winner from the Senior Bowl. He was kind of rising up boards before that too. He kind of checking the tape as we get to the Senior Bowl, kind of watching the guys on that. And he's kind of fun to watch. Big physical pass rusher, moves better than, what his size is, I suppose. You can slide him inside. He can rush from inside as well. Very good stopping to run. So it's kind of a rare type of pass rusher. Teams are starting to go away from the big body guys because they're not athletic enough. It's kind of just bull rush, use your strength. But So it's rare to see a big body guy like this that can do multiple different things here. So I feel like the Eagles are a pretty good fit, and they could be looking for pass rushers in the future here going forward. Titans go Paris Johnson Jr., Ohio State offensive lineman. I've mocked this before. Pair him with former Ohio State tackle Nicholas Petit-Frere, who was pretty good. Titans offensive line was awful, but he was pretty good for them last year. So they need offensive line help for sure. So pair those guys up. Texans get their pass rusher Lucas Van Ness, edge rusher from Iowa. So maybe he's not going to be as good as Nick Bosa, but maybe a Nick Bosa style pass rusher for DeMeco Ryans in that defense here. And we talked about it when we were talking about the second overall pick. A couple different scenarios. They can stay put to quarterback like I had them doing. They can trade up one spot and get the quarterback of their choosing, or they can stay put and take a big-time defensive player, whether it's Will Anderson, the edge rusher, which maybe they wouldn't take Van Ness if they got Will Anderson, or it could be Jalin Carter. So guys to really fit and blossom in that DeMeco Ryans defense there. 13th pick, the Jets go Peter Skoronski, offensive lineman for Northwestern. So, yeah, the Jets could use some offensive line help. George Fant wasn't as good this past year. We saw some injuries across the offensive line as well. He's a free agent. It just feels like they don't like Mekhi Becton. He's had some injuries as well. They have Dwayne Brown for one more year. He's up there in age, so they need tackle help. I like their interior. Interesting thought, though. Could they, move Elijah Vera Tucker to tackle? Because remember, he played tackle last year at USC. They moved him to guard. Looked really good at guard. Had to play tackle because of the injuries. Pretty good at tackle. So more likely a guard, but if they move him out to tackle, then maybe they could be in need of a guard. Maybe they can go to an Osiris Torrance here from Florida. It's a possibility. But yeah, the top three offensive linemen off the board at this point. Interesting to see the order they will come off the board. It's going to be about fit, when it comes to those guys. I got an interesting pick here that I actually really like. The Patriots take Will McDonald, the edge rusher from Iowa State. He was at the Senior Bowl. A lot of buzz about him. You see in one-on-ones, you see the pass rush skills, the pass rush moves, but you see the speed rush as well. He's just too athletic for guys. You do see that he's a little thin, though. He needs to put on some size, but he was very good and very productive at Iowa State. But this guy is a Bill Belichick guy. I started watching more and more on him very recently. This just feels like a Patriots, I'm not even going to say pass rusher. I'm going to say defender, because he's kind of a do-it-all type of pass rusher where he can rush off the edge, he can stand up, he can put his hand in the dirt, but he can play off-ball linebacker as well. Line him up at off-ball linebacker. You need him to drop in coverage, but you need him to line up in unique spots and blitz. It's technically not a pass, off the edge if he's coming from the inside. It just feels like a Patriots guy here. Now, they do have a pretty good duo in Matthew Judon and Josh Uche, who really broke out this year. Judon maybe not going to be around forever. Uche, one more year left on his deal. I would imagine the Patriots extend him, but the Patriots are a little hesitant extending guys to big contracts sometimes. Edge could be a different scenario, but I just really love the fit of McDonald. You take some pieces of a young Matthew Judon when he was younger, and then some like what Josh Uche is able to do. Maybe some Van Noy in there as well, who was with the Patriots for a bit, and it kind of makes a guy like Will McDonald. So I like that fit a lot. It is a little early. The only thing with him, though, really is could he bulk up a little bit, but I don't know if the Patriots would be too concerned about that in their style defense. So I love the fit there, and he's a riser right now. Jordan Addison of the Packers. I know the Packers are a little hesitant to take receivers early. They traded up in value to receiver big time when taking Christian Watson. He looked pretty good down the stretch for them, so they definitely could use another one in here. And Addison, who should be the first receiver taken off the board, they could. Aaron Rodgers was disappointing with the receivers last year. It needed to be better. A guy like Cobb could be done. So if Rodgers is there, you're making the receiver unit better for him. If he's gone, you really want to put Jordan Love, see if this is the guy of the future. So go get him some weapons here. So either way, it makes some sense. Devon Witherspoon, who's a big riser as well. Flashy corner, flies up, makes big time plays on the ball underneath. Pretty damn athletic as well, lengthy. A lot of buzz on him, recently. He could go earlier than this. I like the spot at the Commanders. I feel like a really good fit in Ron Rivera's defense, so kind of stacking up that defense there. I think I had this last time as well. And you see at the bottom there, best mock draft simulator, walk the mock. You can have some fun with that. We have a code. There's a link pinned in the comments. Next 8 picks. Steelers were really doing, I heard this from multiple different sources, really doing their work, their coaching staff with offense linemen at the Senior Bowl, like really focusing on them, off to the side, working on these guys. And I've heard that they really like Darnell Wright. Could be smoke. Maybe they're interested in a different offensive lineman. I heard they really like Wright. I heard they like the idea of him going to guard as well, which I don't want to say doesn't make sense because I think he could be a really good guard, but I like him at tackle a lot. And they would probably, would they play him at left tackle? Would they play him, because he's more of a right tackle, but he could play left? Could they move him to guard? Either way, they could use the offensive line help. And this is kind of a post-Senior Bowl mock draft, so we'll follow the buzz there. We'll follow the info on that one. And I do think they're in the market for offensive linemen, like I said. So they go Darnell Wright. The Lions loading up on defensive backs in this mock. They get Christian Gonzalez at outside corner that can fit their man coverage. And they get Brian Branch, who is a versatile defensive back, but I like him in his man coverage from the slot, which the Lions kind of had Mike Hughes playing there a bit. So a big-time upgrade here of Brian Branch. So they're really loading up secondary. And Branch could play safety if you need him to as well. But I think a dominant slot player in this draft class here. So the Lions are really starting to load up on that secondary. Remember, Kirby Joseph, really was good in his rookie season, up and comer. And you some other young pieces in there you still think could be good too. So. Just really completing this team here. The Bucks go Cyrus Torrence, who had a really good outing at the Senior Bowl. Just big physical guard. Former Louisiana guard, goes to Florida, looks just as good there against better competition. I think this guy's going earlier than where people have him. I think people had him at the very late first round or early second. I think he's going around these parts here. Could even go earlier. Definitely a possibility. The Bucks definitely need guard help. We know that. So the Seahawks, who are probably about to extend Geno Smith, take a quarterback. Geno Smith, maybe it could be a 3-year deal. Doesn't have, it's possible he's not, around for another contract after that. And Seahawks have an opportunity here. They have 2 first-round picks. They got loads of picks, really. So they have the opportunity to do this. Anthony Richardson, a ton of upside. May need to sit a little bit first, so learn what he learned this past year to improve the way he did. So it makes some sense there. To get the upside quarterback of this class. The Dolphins did forfeit their pick. The Chargers at 21 go Jalin Hyatt, the Tennessee receiver, speedster, home run type receiver. Was big time for that high-powered offense this past year. Came out earlier today that the Chargers could cut Keenan Allen, which is would be weird to see. But they, looking at the cap space situation, they are in a hole. And they could free up some space moving on from Keenan Allen, so it's a possibility. I think they need receivers either way because we saw that they got good receivers, but they were missing some guys here and there throughout this season that kind of hurt them. But also you get a guy that can replace Keenan Allen. Hyatt, a slot different than Keenan Allen, even though he plays a lot in the slot, but can play outside like Keenan Allen, but different because he's more of a speedster type of guy. But you can plug him in the slot. Where Keenan Allen played a lot of his ball. And he, since he's a downfield speedster type of guy, really fits that Justin Herbert ball. And, that they had so much potential to get the ball downfield a little bit more, stretch the field a little bit more. They're a little underwhelming in that category, and this would definitely help. It's not the quarterback's fault they weren't able to get the ball downfield as much as we thought, even though they did. Because Herbert's an elite quarterback there. So adding a guy like Hyatt, I love the fit there. I love it if they have Keenan Allen or if they don't. Either way. So again, love that fit. Keely Ringo, cornerback from Georgia, going to the Ravens. Marcus Peters going to be a free agent. And the Ravens do have some other pieces. Besides Humphrey's obviously a sure thing starter. They do have some other pieces, but I think they can get better there. And they'll like Ringo from Georgia, who for some reason has become underrated. Physical corner, really good production, really good play under his belt the last couple of years. I think he's going to really show out the combine as well. I think the Ravens will like him, so they grab that corner there. And maybe a little bit of a shocker here. I have the Vikings going to Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas, who is very tough to mock because, this is a top 10 player in the draft. Pro Bowl, it could be an instant Pro Bowl running back. I'm not going to be surprised at all if he's a rookie Pro Bowl running back. He can catch the ball in the backfield and downfield as well. The Vikings could move on from Dalvin Cook. They could. Was a little off this year, but still a dynamic, impressive running back. But they need to free some space, so you free the space, get a little cheaper here, and possibly, as good as Dalvin Cook is, possibly get better at the position with a guy like Bijan Robinson. So the Vikings are in a little bit of a hole with the cap space, so they could make some tough decisions with moving on from some good players. So this is kind of weird to see, but I think it's a possibility if Robinson starts to slide a little bit. It could be the latest he goes. I think the Bucks could take him. The Chargers would. The Seahawks could be a wild card because Penny's a free agent. They always value the running back duo. Chargers, Ravens, Vikings, right around that range. He could go really early. He could go up to the Eagles pick. But this would be pretty very interesting. Next 8 picks, then we'll move on to the second round. Third round will be for our Twitter subs. Jaguars take Michael Mayer, tight end from Notre Dame. I think, they could bring Ingram back, and even with or without Ingram, I like Mayer for them. I think he really fits Doug Peterson's offense. It'd be crazy, Lawrence and Mayer. It could be like his Kelsey, for Mahomes. What the Jaguars are trying to become. The improvement of Trevor Lawrence in that offense. So I think that they would be extremely impressive. Of a duo with Lawrence and Mayer there. Giants go Zay Flowers. Who I like if he plays more in the slot than he did in Boston College. He played both. He played slot and outside, but I think he can. I think some physical corners would give him some issues on the outside. There's certain games I saw that. In the Notre Dame game, I saw that. Even though he had some big plays, I thought maybe some physicality from some tough corners on the outside, but could slow him down. But if you put him on the inside, very impressive. The footwork, the explosiveness, the speed before and after the catch, big playability. So the Giants add him, put him in a slot. Could really thrive there in that system. Cowboys go Joey Porter Jr., cornerback from Penn State. They could definitely use another corner here to pair with Diggs. Bland was all right. Came in, playmaker. Got his hands on the ball a little bit. Did give up some, though, some big plays. But, could just be looking to improve that cornerback group. Brian Bruzzi, defensive line from Clemson. The Bills' interior defensive line, I think, is a little underwhelming. I think, and they got to start to look out for the future on top of that. Should be better than it is, but it's not. So they add a solid young piece here that can actually move around the defensive line. Bengals go Dalton Kincaid maybe to replace Hayden Hurst, the tight end from Utah, big production guy. I had this last time as well. Last time, the Broncos had this pick, but they traded it to the Saints for a coach, for Sean Payton. So the Saints are now picking 29th overall. And remember, last year it worked out so well, and they took Ohio State receiver. So they take another one here in a different style guy, Jackson Smith-Njigba from Ohio State. And Michael Thomas, his contract, the way they restructured or reworked it is pretty interesting. They could end up moving on from him. And then Jarvis Landry is going to be gone. And Olave was great. And they have some other pieces that are good as well. But adding another big-time receiver in here could be big. And Olave's that speedster outside type receiver. Jackson Smith-Njigba could be that possession slot receiver, really to replace Michael Thomas here, who was kind of that possession, more than that, can be a contested catch guy, but was kind of a big slot type of guy who actually played at Ohio State as well. So getting these weapons for whatever new quarterback's coming in, I kind of got a feeling it could be Derek Carr if they decide to trade for him. There'll be a little bit more of a hole with the cap though if they do that, but get the quarterback first, worry about that after. It's a possibility. Or they could be looking for a quarterback in this class. They could trade up for a quarterback. They can wait to the second round, take a guy like Hendon Hooker. They can end up with a Jimmy Garoppolo in free agency if they miss on Carr. Definitely a possibility. Either way, you want to make these receivers better for them. They got Olave, and you're going to need some more here. Speaking of Ohio State, another guy, DeJuan Jones, who helped himself at the Senior Bowl with just measuring in, the record length, and everyone wants to work with that type of guy. Looked good day one with the drills, one-on-one drills. He did get injured after that, but he's going to be fine. Chiefs looking for that right tackle of the future. And Orlando Brown, their left tackle, is a free agent, but I think they'll work something out with him. So they get their right tackle of the future here in DeJuan Jones from Ohio State. So both Ohio State tackles go in the first round. And we had a receiver go in the first. We had their quarterback go. So, And the Eagles grab another running back. Miles Sanders is a free agent. Do they want to give him big money? That's a big question. He was very good for them this year. But when they put Gainwell back there, Scott back there, they look pretty damn good as well. So maybe they move on. They don't pay the big money to the running back, and they add a guy that can be their starter and still mix in Gainwell and Scott perhaps. So they add Jahmyr Gibbs at 31 overall there. We're moving on to the second round. This is our first 2-round mock of the offseason here, which is it the offseason because the Super Bowl is still to come here. But third round will be on Twitter for our Twitter subs there. So the Steelers double up on offensive linemen. They go John Michael Schmitz, the center from Minnesota, who had a really good outing at the Senior Bowl. Plug-and-play guy for them, so they really bluster the offensive line here and just make it better for a young quarterback, Kenny Pickett, but for Najee Harris as well. They get the run blocking a little bit better. Texans go Quentin Johnston, receiver from TCU. Yeah, could go in the first round. There's a lot to like about him. Big body receiver that you can kind of get the ball anywhere in the field, even underneath, and he'll kind of go after that. Does he get as much separation as you would like? That's who's taking over the NFL, the receivers that get separation. So you want to get the safe picks that for sure, you can get some separation, so don't get me wrong here, but the guys that sure thing can get separation. So the Texans grab a receiver of the future there. Cardinals could go with the pass rusher early in the first with Will Anderson. This scenario went with Jalen Carter. So that we get the Georgia pass rusher and Nolan Smith. So they're doubling up on Georgia guys there. Athletic speed rusher off the edge is coming off a pec injury. Little undersized. I think depending on what scheme the Cardinals want to run, it could work, but could bulk up a little bit. So this is actually the Colts pick today. Technically, I had a trade early in this mock. The Colts went up to 1. The Bears dropped down to 4. They also got the Colts pick 35 overall. It's very, very, very likely they would get this pick if that trade were to happen. So they get a tackle to pair with Braxton Jones. So they'll put Anton Harrison at the right tackle spot from Oklahoma, who had a really good year. Oklahoma was disappointing, but Harrison was pretty impressive there. So the Bears can go a lot of different routes because they have a lot of needs. But they go the tackle here. Try to get that offensive line going for Justin Fields. Steve Avila, a guard from TCU for the Rams. The Rams could use offensive linemen in general. If they stay healthy, they're going to be a lot better than last year, but they can use another guy on the inside there perhaps. Thought about pass rusher for them. They could be a surprise running back team. They maybe could be a tight end, could be a little bit of a surprise to some people maybe, but I could see it. Safety, wrap a free agent. They can actually go with the multiple different routes here, but a big problem for them was the offensive line. I think specifically interior, but so they go with Avila from TCU there. Seahawks go Trenton Simpson, who could be a first-round player, but they get that linebacker, athletic, freaky linebacker from Clemson here at 37. So the Seahawks putting together a draft here. Raiders go Kalijah Cansey, who also could be a first-round pick, defensive lineman from Pittsburgh. I like him as an interior pass rusher. 3 technique. You could slide him outside, but I like him inside of Max Crosby and Chandler Jones here. The Raiders need interior defensive line help, but imagine the pass rush you can get with this group. And the Panthers get their edge rusher to pair with Brian Burns. They get Derek Hall from Auburn, physical pass rusher there who can stand up or put his hand in the dirt. Next 8 picks. Saints also get a pass rusher. They go Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame. The Saints, I thought about a pass rusher for them in the first round too because Marcus Davenport's a free agent. They could bring him back, who knows? But Cameron Jordan kind of getting up there in age as well. They do have Peyton Turner, who does have a little bit of durability issues, but kind of looking out for the future here. The Saints aren't afraid to grab their pass rushers there. Titans thought about receiver here because they desperately could use a receiver, but Darnell Washington can be an interesting guy to pair with the crew they already have there. Which they value tight end, but they're going to have a new coordinator. Could it be Tim Kelly, in-house guy, but a big body guy that can also block in the run game could intrigue the Titans. Could they move on from Hooper perhaps? We'll see. But I thought about receiver here, but I saw more value at Washington, who I think the Titans could like. Keanu Benton, who had a really good outing in the Senior Bowl, especially one-on-ones, who's a nose tackle that I would like for teams not just to keep at nose tackle on early downs, keep him on the field on passing downs as well. Line him up, in the A gap, line them up, not just over the center, not just on the nose there, line them up over the guard. The Browns definitely could use a guy like that. We know that. So their first pick goes with Benton, interior physical guy from Wisconsin there. Jets go Hendon Hooker. The Jets could definitely get their quarterback for now in the future. This offseason, could they trade for Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers? Definitely a possibility. Either one, they could strike out on both. Rodgers could go to the Raiders and Carr could go to the Saints, for an example. Then they could get Jimmy Garoppolo in free agency. I don't think that would be that lengthy of a deal. He has the injury concern as well. Hooker is legit. He's legit. He's just coming off that injury, though. And there was some buzz about him at the Senior Bowl, even though he couldn't play in that, obviously. But there was some good talk about him. Was very talented this year. Can sling the ball. Was pretty accurate. Tennessee did have a unique scheme where it did kind of open things up for him. So that's the tricky part. But the Jets could be still looking for their quarterback of the future. Really, no matter what they do this offseason. If they get Derek Carr, then they probably won't be getting a quarterback. But they might not get a quarterback in the draft either way. Cam Smith, South Carolina corner, who I saw good play from him on the outside and actually on the inside, but I do like him outside. So the Falcons are looking for that guy to pair with A.J. Terrell for the future. They're going to value corner for sure. They're going to value having that strong duo. I know they have Casey Hayward. They could move on from him. Was he 34, 35? He's a hell of a ball player. But they could be looking for the future of the cornerback duo. Packers go with B.J. Ojulari, edge from LSU, to add to that rotation, but possibly start to take Preston Smith, even though he's been solid, kind of take his spot there. Remember, Gary got injured last year as well, so kind of having an extra guy. Anagbari is a pretty solid option as well, but I think kind of looking out for a starter of the future, maybe right away with a talented B.J. Ojulari there. Patriots go at Nick Saldiveri, the offensive tackle from Old Dominion. Somewhat of a small school guy. I know Old Dominion is still Division I, but somewhat a small school guy that should start to get noticed, perhaps. Maybe it's just me. A little bit more here, and the Patriots could be looking for another tackle. The tackle play was pretty bad this year, so they grab the Old Dominion standout there. Washington, the Commanders go at Cody Mauch, offensive lineman from North Dakota State, who we saw at the Senior Bowl. And mainly why he stood out was because they moved him around everywhere. And usually when that happens, it's because coaches from different teams, not just the ones coaching, and they're just saying, hey, we want to see him here, we want to see him there. And I felt like it was kind of a lot of people in agreement that he could play multiple different spots. He played tackle. I think he's more likely to play interior, whether it's guard or center. In this case, the Commanders would play him at guard here. So versatile offensive lineman, it looks like, there at 47 to Washington. Next 8 picks. Lions got a couple picks. They had a couple in the first. They got a couple more. Luke Musgrave, a freaky athletic long tight end, receiving tight end from Oregon State. So they lost T.J. Hawkinson, and they were still pretty good. They were still pretty good offensively without him. They were using some other tight ends, but they could get even better here. A lot cheaper than a guy like Hawkinson. And, he's such a good target, Musgrave, that is. So it's a pretty good replacement as well. And they already filled the needs in the secondary, in this scenario in the first round. Steelers with another pick. Tyreek Stevenson, who's a physical corner from Miami, actually was with Georgia before that. Likes to come up and attack the ball, could hit as well. So Steelers looking out for a corner of the future. Buccaneers get Tuli Tuipulotu, defensive lineman from USC, who had a very productive year, but I like him possibly, moving around that defensive line for the Bucs. They got some guys, a little bit older, obviously on that D line, not so much Vita Vea, obviously, but, the rest of the crew there. And when they lost Sue, they didn't have him this year. And they have Logan Hall, who can move around a bit, 3-4 end or off the edge. But adding another guy here on the interior defensive line that can get after the quarterback. Dolphins with their first pick of the draft, Mozzie Smith, who was a nose tackle from Michigan, really good run stuffer. With Vic Fangio coming in, I think that's something they're going to look for. A guy to pair with Christian Wilkins, the defensive tackle. A guy on the inside, so a big body guy, standout guy from this year from Michigan, Mozzie Smith. Could make some sense there. Seahawks with another pick, really loading up here. I like Joe Tippmann. I think he's a really good center from Wisconsin. And the Seahawks got a couple free agents there, and they drafted so well in the offensive line last year. Add this last young piece, really could start to come together here. The Bears at 53 go Keion Boutte, receiver from LSU, who talent-wise, could be a first-round pick, but there was some issues. You don't really like his attitude, I guess, early in the year. I don't think he was a fan of Brian Kelly, maybe, and Brian Kelly wasn't really a fan of him. Brian Kelly's the type of guy that's not going to put up with any shit, though. But there's some NFL teams that might not want to put up with that. But you start to slide a little bit. He starts to slide a little bit to 53. He's just so talented. You saw him not just from this past year, which when he played, he was pretty solid, minus that Florida State game. But 2 years ago was ridiculous. And we're looking at another just future NFL stud, LSU receiver. So at some point, especially the Bears got to take a shot here. They have Claypool and they have Mooney, which I like a young duo like that, but they could be looking for another piece. I wouldn't be surprised. I know fans really want them to take receiver. I also wouldn't be surprised where they kind of maybe focus everywhere else. They kind of feel like they're okay with maybe a lot of stock in a guy like Mooney and Claypool that trade last year, and then some of the other pieces they have, St. Brown, or maybe get a cheaper free agent. I wouldn't be surprised if they went that route as well. They'll have to draft a guy somewhere in here, though. But Booty starts to slide a little bit to take him. Chargers get Nick Herbig, pass rusher from Wisconsin, who's very productive, probably not getting talked about enough this year. And, decision to make with Khalil Mack. Could they cut him? It's pretty talented guy to cut, but could save a lot of money. Bosa has the injury concern, if you want to put it that way. And Van Noy's going to be a free agent, so they could be looking for another pass rusher here. Lions go Javon Dexter, defensive lineman from Florida, can move around the interior defensive line, so help them stop the run a little bit better. They do have some young guys that I like on the interior defensive line, but they need better play up there still. They need more of it, so they add Dexter here, which a load of picks for the Lions, looking pretty good there. In the last 8 picks, remember, I'm doing the third round. If you subscribe to us on Twitter, if you follow us on Twitter, appreciate you. If you subscribe to us on Twitter, we also appreciate you. If you're looking for that third round mock that I keep saying I'm going to do, and it's not there yet, don't worry. I'm still working on it. I had to do this first, obviously, and there's more content where that came from. Top 50 free agents with landing spots, more on the way. That one's already up, but more on the way. Jags get Emmanuel Forbes, cornerback from Mississippi State. The cornerback class is so good that we got some studs dropping down here. Forbes possibly can go in the first round. I think it makes more sense with the other corners going before him, in my opinion. He's a good playmaker, got his hands on the ball quite a bit. Did watch the tape on him. Quite a few of those interceptions were pretty wild. They were wild. Some of them were tipped around a bit. A little fortunate, but he still knows how to get his hands on the ball. He is really thin. Another one of those guys you maybe wish it was a little more physical, a little more bulk on him, but big-time playmaker all over the field. The Jags could use him, could move on from Griffin this offseason. I love this fit of Drew Sanders, Arkansas linebacker to the Giants. This is a Don Martindale type of linebacker. Put him on the inside, blitz him all you want, and they need help on the inside as well. It just makes a lot of sense as a fit. Cowboys getting a little receiver they could use. Josh Downs. Receiver from UNC, can play inside or out, speedy, quick, gets that separation. Bills get Brandon Joseph. I was looking for a guard for them. I didn't like the value here, but Brandon Joseph I like as a Bills safety. Poyer is a free agent. It's possible that they don't bring him back. So pairing a guy like Joseph with Micah Hyde makes some sense. Having that split safety duo there. I like the fit of Brandon Joseph with the Bills. Some talk about moving Christian Benford, who I liked when we saw him at corner. I liked him as a corner at Villanova as well. But there's some talk about him possibly moving to safety. Does he end up starting there? Do they need another corner then? Dane Jackson's a free agent, so a little tricky there. What's going to go on in Buffalo? They could very well bring Poyer back, perhaps. We'll see. But I like Brandon Joseph as a Bills safety. He kind of felt like a good fit. Jalen Duncan for the Bengals could play him at right tackle, the Maryland tackle. The tight end, the first tackle here. Panthers go Sidney Brown, the safety from Illinois, was a big-time standout at Illinois this year. Doing a bit of everything, getting his hands on the ball in the back end, but coming up in the backfield or around the line of scrimmage as well. But the Panthers get Ajero Evero. That was yesterday, actually. They hired him as defensive coordinator. They could value adding another safety with Jeremy Chinn. I know they have Xavier Woods last year. It's a guy you can get better than there, but Brown can move around a bit, can play more so free for them. So that can make some sense. Felix and Dike Azuma, edge rusher from Kansas State, goes to the Chiefs there. It just feels like their type of pass rusher there, which tricky. Carl Aftis was great. Carlos Dunlap could be on his way out up there in age, but Frank Clark's the tricky situation. So good for them still. But the contract he's on just simply won't work for this next year. So they'll either rework it or cut him, re-sign him. Maybe they cut him and he ends up going somewhere else, but they could use another pass rusher there. And the Eagles get a corner for the future there, and they could use some depth. And then James Bradbury's a free agent. They get Deonte Banks, the corner from Maryland. A couple Maryland guys going here in these last 8 picks. But that'll be it for the post-Senior Bowl 2-round mock draft. Again, I'm gonna work on the 3rd round for our Twitter subs, which they also get a bunch of other content there. If you just normal follow us on Twitter, there's a bunch of extra content, always giving you guys my latest thoughts, the latest news, rumors, more things like that. Always talking with you guys there. So link pin in the comments and I'll bring you directly to it. There's also links down there for our sponsors. Check those out. Head over our channel. Check out our recent videos. You will not be disappointed. There is definitely more, where that came from there. So join us, like, subscribe, to notifications on. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.